Hello, this is Dogcesy. Yeah, I'm back for like a short while. Cause I'm recording this the day before my internship, so I'm not exactly sure how free I'll be doing the internship. As for why I haven't really uploaded recently, let's just say that my body did not like the booster shot I got. So yeah, it's kind of that I guess. I had fever and all those stuff, so yeah. But yeah, I'm more or less fine right now, I guess. Maybe my voice is still somewhat croaky, I guess, from what I can tell. But more or less fine already. So, yeah, I know this is long overdue, but yeah, I also should just update you guys. So, if you guys don't see any videos like after a while, after like after some of the videos I have like scheduled runs out, which probably will be my CC videos, I guess, and probably some previous Starlight stuff as well. I have also like recorded those. So I will be uploading them. And then after some point of time, if there isn't any videos anymore, just take note that I'm probably busy in my internship. It's only gonna be like 5 months since it's like my school internship, my school plan internship. So it's only gonna be like 5 6 months. Yeah. So I'll probably try to see if I can like upload other stuff as well. I'm not exactly sure whether I have the time to like sit down here and record this, but yeah. So if you don't see any like this, like me talking about the banners, just take note that I probably didn't have the time. So yeah. But regardless, I guess I'll see how it is. I'll try to fit some time, cause people do apparently watch these videos as well instead of like the others. Why? But yeah, I'll be talking about the current standard banner. If anything, there's only like 4 days left as I'm recording this. So it's probably yeah, but I did pull on a banner. That's one thing so yeah, I did pull on a banner. I have uploaded it like onto my cloud, onto like the cloud or drive or what you call it. I just need to find it. Like I said, I have been recording them. So because I have like a pile of videos that I don't know what is, since I haven't bothered reading them, they're all like screening recorder, something something like that, at the date time, all those stuff. So yeah, probably I will try to find the video, but yeah, I don't expect much. But I will be uploading this like the day of my internship start, which is tomorrow. And then I'll try to. Um, if I want to, I'm not sure. I want to try playing around a bit with editing as well, but I don't think of the time, so I'll still upload it tomorrow, I guess. Regardless, but yeah. So I'll be talking about the current standard banner, for Sora and Aya. First talk about Aya, who is actually one of my favorite operators and probably my favorite for a very very long time as well. If anything else, just don't know. I can't remember what is it that draw me in for her. But yeah, Aya is one of my favorite operators. And about her, if you want her to be any support or any kind of those stuff, look somewhere else. I know there's a debuff tag, but if you really want a proper support stuff like that, look somewhere else. Since what everything that AI has is just damage. That is the one thing that AI excels really at, is damage. If you want like support stuff like that, I don't know, maybe click you have before having her stun, steward having her like special target priority, and then haze where there's more consistent. Yeah, haze is somewhat like AI actually. I don't know. Yeah, on nightmare if a healing, if you want like some unique stuff that the caster can bring, either stun for click, yeah, healing for with nightmare stuff like that. Look elsewhere. Since all AI really does is just pure damage. So I'll just straight up go into her. Talent, first talent, increase attack of all casters operators. Kind of it does two things as well. It does also affect her, and it's only when she's deployed. So unlike that backpipe where she just had to be in the squad you bring along, Aya's one you have to deploy her. So yeah. And then the other one, which is pretty much actually a very very strong talent. Actually, after deployment, you immediately gain a fixed, like a random amount of SP. So say random is technically the range is fixed. So yeah, and it's further increased at not mastery at port 3, which I don't have. My AI is still port 2, so that's something I guess. But yeah, and then the talent greatly affects the skill 2 as well as skill 3. Skill 1 you just will never use. So I guess I'll move on to it. I will not talk about skill 1. I guess I'll talk about skill 1 last. There is some of a use case for it. So you understand the use case better if I talk about skill 2. So skill 2, the next attack immediately does damage as well as half splash damage to nearby enemies. So there's something to take note that the splash damage they receive will be halved. So it's not as high, but it's still around fixed amount there. Technically, this should be due additional art damage because as far as I can tell, whenever she targets only a single enemy, there is actually 2 instances of damage, and both of them is actually the same amount. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I think it's like they apply the damage itself, then the splash damage on the area itself. So there is actually 2 instances of damage on the main target itself. But yeah, additionally, it also does inflict art resistance debuff onto the main target for the next 6 seconds, hence the the debuff tag here. But it really isn't that big of a deal per se. So it doesn't really affect her damage too much since the SP cost is by itself 6 seconds at M1 at rank 7 as well as until M3, but it's reduced to 5. So you don't really get the most out of the arch resistance for her unless you actually stack up and hold on to the charges. So that's something I guess. I mean, you will still gain the benefit from her normal attacks, just that the normal attacks doesn't really do too much damage. So yeah, it is nice of arch resistance, but if you really want arch resistance, to be honest, I would say Ifrit will be better, to be honest. Or even haste by herself when the skill is active, if you can keep her alive. It's more the debuff is more consistent throughout a longer period of time. Even, as well as also even longer as well. I believe Hazel's one is 23% arch resistance and hers is only 20. Okay, 25 and M3. Okay, I haven't M3 her. Mine is M1. That's skill 2, so I wouldn't know. But yeah. So I guess that's kind of something. It is actually a very good skill 2 is. There's good consistent arch damage. As well as the fact that you can actually somewhat heavy drop her for the splash damage because of her second talent. Though you can't do that in E1 and below, I guess. You can do that E2. But because you actually gain 7 to 16, right? So it actually means you get one to 2 charges actually. So you immediately when you deploy her, you have 2 charges right off the bat already for you to quickly splash down enemies. Which is actually useful since I found myself like, kind of deploying AR somewhat after my vanguards. After my vanguards, not like even before my healers. So my vanguard's getting swarmed by like the enemies. I quickly deploy AR, hit the splash, clear out the crowd, and then deploy my healer so that my healer can heal them out, stuff like that. So it is actually a very strong skill. If you want splash, there is kind of like the entire thing about how the skill did kind of like overshadow like the AoE casters because of it. I mean, they did try to somewhat balance it by saying that they receive half, but the thing is the half is off based on the 300+% arts damage already by itself, so it's already quite high damage by itself still. So yeah, if you ask me about the masteries, I would say just M1 skill 2 only. You don't really need skill 3 to be M3 to be outright honest. I mean, I can see the benefit of it since there's the extra 5% arch resistance as well as lower SP cost, but M1 you already gain the third charge by itself, so that is more or less good enough for most general content. Then to be outright honest, if you're using AR for like high CC, you're more likely using the skill 3. But so yeah. Skill 2 is actually a very good consistent damage. Has helped me out a lot in like the general maps, even some CCs as well as for annihilation. To be honest, has a fixed consistent arc damage that she gives. the splash is some of a bonus, I guess. It does also help me like reduce, like bring less AOE units. So it is also useful. But yeah, a very good consistent damage skill. And then skill 3, it's basically the skill that she's most well known for. Volcano. She expands her attack range, gains very high attack at M3. At rank 7 is also still decently high, but I'll personally recommend that you M3 her for both this as well as this. As well as this. You see the increase from M3 to M2 to M3, so yeah. I'll greatly recommend you M3 the skill, but yeah. Skill expand the attack range to basically this. Take it short. I think it's even bigger than Carnigan's range actually. Expands it to that range. Greatly increase attack by 130%, as well as reduce attack interval by 1.1 seconds. So they'll make the attack interval to 0.5 seconds, as well as the fact that whenever she attacks, she can target up to 6 random enemies, and you ask damage to all of them in the 0.5 second interval. So yeah, just very fast burst of arts damage. Very fast. It will melt down a lot of enemies. This is the reason why in the Banner Mine CC, I think it's CC4, a lot of people Aya was like the key operator for a lot of strategies. The very great burst arts damage, able to melt mud rock, all the colossal stuff like that very fast. So yeah, it's kind of that, to be honest. And it's kind of more or less all about her two skills. It's very high arts damage. That is just what she's known for. I mean, it's probably not as high as let's say Sota, due to Sota's talent where she knows art resistance. Anyway, I think Aya's burst arts damage is actually behind the Sota. I actually don't know. I haven't tried it out yet. But yeah, this basically all that she is. Arts damage. If you really want anything else, again, yeah, so skill 2 has the arts resistance debuff, but it's not much, and it's kind of there. If you really want arts resistance like debuff, like I said, Ifrit is probably a better choice. Because it's just the talent is passive and stuff like that, but yeah, very strong. I guess I'll just start about skill 1 right now. Skill 1, the only reason why you want to use it is if you don't want the splash damage. Like for example in the CC3, or like there's it called Windswept Highlands, I think it's called, that's what the map is called, and the Saka Sentinels. Because of skill 2, it's possible that the splash damage may actually trigger the Saka Sentinels, or skill 3 because of the stupid range, expanded range. But technically it's stupid in that case, but yeah, because of the expanded range, you may actually accidentally trigger the Saka Sentinels. If you don't want to do that, since skill 1 keeps the fact that she's a core caster, keep the targeting of that, so it actually helps to prevent you triggering or damaging other enemies that you do not want to do so. But at the same time, if you're going to be doing that, why not just use other casters, to be honest? And maybe, I don't know, just use other casters like Amiya, but because of her talent, there's actually because the uptime of the downtime of a skill is greatly reduced, or like I don't know, Steward. The fact that Steward costs a lot less, while also having high consistent damage because her skill, his skill is also automated trigger like her AI skill 2. So to be honest, click for her stun. Like to be honest, if you really want like single target damage, the other single target casters will actually be even better, to be outright honest. So it's kind of that. I mean, it's skill 1 still exists there. So if you want to use her maybe for talent to ensure like your mint, which actually from my own experience, I found out that the extra 14% has helped mint kills like certain enemies that she otherwise wouldn't be able to do at max E1. As maybe for like that reason you want the extra 14% attack. There really isn't a reason to use skill 1. Use a skill 1 over other casters. So yeah, that more or less I guess. I mean, I'm also very happy with the switch skill. I really like it. I think that's really more or less about a you just use her for the damage, to be all honest. You don't use her for anything else. So yeah, let's move on to Rosa, who I guess a very big disclaimer is I don't I don't own her. Neither do any of my friends actually own her. That is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Like the four of us don't, none of us actually own Poca. I don't know how that happened, but that's apparently the case, I guess. So yeah, she's known as a besieger for where she will target the highest, like the highest weight of enemy, as well as having this weird range. So she, if you do own her, from what I've heard, she is very hard to play with. But not that I would know, like I said, since none of the four of us actually own her, or actually even Toddy phones in a man. Actually no, wait, no one of them do own 25, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether yeah, I'm not sure whether he owns. I think he did tell me about it. I guess I'll have to confirm with later, I guess. But yeah, and basically none of us has played with the Besieger archetype much at all, or if anything else. So I guess I did play with her once for skill 3 binding. But yeah, that's kind of that, I guess, to be honest. So whatever I do say, take it with a very like a big bowl of salt, I guess. Like yeah, I guess I just thought about it. Yeah. So target highest weight enemy. Like enemies do have like a weight class where they're affected by the pulls and pullings of the of like the pull and like shifting, I guess it's called the shifting skill stuff like that. So yeah, in case you guys did not know, I guess. But yeah, so she'll target the highest weak enemy, which more often than not I found to be actually high defense enemies as well, which isn't that big of a deal for her. Like Poca personally, both for her talent as well as for the fact that she does a very very high attack by itself already. So yeah, I just straight up move on to the talent. And the first talent, whenever she attacks enemies with a weight class of 3 or higher, she'll ignore 60% of their defense whenever she attacks them. And that also includes with the skill from what I know, which is a very big game changer, to be honest. Just ignoring, it's not even ignoring a fixed amount of damage, defense, ignoring a percentage of damage. So the amount of defense that she does ignore does also scale with the defense, like the defense of the enemies. So it's somewhat like KOB, but it's not gonna be like that big of a deal per se. It's because, let's say, since 40% of a higher number is still higher than 40% of the lower number, even though you're ignoring, even though 60% is also more. You get what I mean? And even though you're ignoring more defense, but the amount of defense you do not ignore is also more as the defense scale. So yeah, but yeah, this is honestly a very useful talent for her to have. Especially since more often than not, the high weight enemies are actually also high defense enemies. So yeah, and her second talent, whenever she's in the team, so it's different from like Aya's where she's had to be deployed. She just had to be in the same squad as the operators. All the also student council members will gain additional 8% attack, which from what I'm aware is her, Gami, Zima. What's the last one? Gami, Zima, Istina. I'm not sure whether Abstain is also included, but as well as her herself. So yeah, she will also gain the additional 8% attack. It's very very useful. Yeah, increasing her already high attack. As well as I'm pretty sure some of them, like Istina, actually, I do found out that without some buffs like Scouter's buff, she does actually somewhat stronger with killing certain enemies. Because Istina's damage really isn't very very high, I found. And then Zima is attack, neither is Zima's attack also very high unless the skill is active. So since Zima, I'm pretty sure is more defensive focus from what I know, like comparing the stats between her and Texas. So yeah, this talent would actually help them up, to be honest. But yeah, I guess so. It's nice to have, I guess. But yeah, I'll straight up talk about her attack. Skill 1, just 60% attack increase with 100% attack increase with 50-50 uptime. I mean, it's not, oh, well, I mean, it's not bad per se. It's just a very very basic skill. I guess it is a good skill for you to use when you're trying to learn about like the Archetype. I guess that's something it, since it's just fixed, just a attack buff. Doesn't just do you don't need to overcomplicate it. Like I said, yeah. So I would say it's a good introductory skill for the Archetype, but in terms of usage, skill 2 would actually be better. This is also the same. High attack buff, also allowing her to target an additional target. Like true, the uptime is somewhat lesser. It's not exactly directly 50-50 at M3, and it's even less at lower masteries. But it is, like I said, in most cases, all this skill is actually greatly better since the attack buff is quite similar, as well as allowing her to target an additional target. There really isn't much to say, I guess, to be honest, since from what I've heard, this skill is supposed to be like her general skill to use. Like if you just want her high damage, which like I said, the reminder, is very high. And basically all talents just buff damage. So yeah, from what I've heard, people have been using these skills in like the chapter 7 or is it chapter 8 against like the UFOs. The UFO is above weight class of 3. So actually they have been using this skill to actually like one cycle the UFOs from what I've heard. I'm not exactly sure how that works, since I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still at chapter 7. So yeah, I don't really know how exactly stuff works, but yeah, I heard that these people have been using this skill to basically like kill to basically letting her solo the UFOs. So I guess that's something, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, this is supposedly be her general skill. I guess I'll still move on to her skill tree, which is the only skill that I've used. It may not seem much, because as I said, it's only buffing the attack by like 10%, or actually 25% MG. Pretty sure the one I used was at M2. So yeah. But immediately when you activate the skill, she immediately fires a harpoon and targets 3 enemies, but still keeping the same target body that she has, which is actually nice, so it's not confusing. Where they are the highest weight class, binding them for the next 7 seconds while also doing consistent physical damage to them. Which you don't really, the thing is you don't actually really use the skill for the damage. I mean the damage is actually still quite high. It's not a high skill, maybe skill 2, but the damage is actually still quite high by itself. You use it for the binding, keeping specific enemies in place. I forgot where I use this her for. I forgot where I use her. Oh yeah, against in the CC4. This is your CC5 against the boss. I don't know which boss I was, but I kept like the boss in place, so that the boss is out of range to my other operators to actually kill the boss. I think I use it against the bow boss. Keep it just like at the tip of Silver Ash, tip of Silver Ash's range, so the Silver Ash can finish off the bow boss. But yeah, that's basically that's what skill 3 is known for. The high binding time. It's like other operators like Robin, where she does have binding, or even Ethan, the binding is only for like 2-3 seconds, whereas hers is for the next 7 seconds. So yeah, it's basically the reason why you use her for. So skill 2 for damage, skill 3 for the bind utility, I guess. But also doing quite good amount of damage, I guess too. But yeah, that's more or less about Rosa, I guess, because like I said, none of us own her. So I can't really say much about her, to be honest. I can only just talk about like what I see on paper, as well as what like other content creators have talked about her about. Which isn't much, since Rosa doesn't seem to come up much in terms of like discussions. So yeah, I mean, if whether Rosa, I guess she is good to have. But yeah, she is good to have as a utility, but the utility that she gives is somewhat like locked behind E2, since it's a skill 3 binding. But Rosa is actually a good operator. If you're going to build her, I guess I would ask you whether other operators have E2 her, but I guess since I would say she's not a high priority to E2, but if you're going to E2 her and you're fully like your other operators like E2, like your some good odd like damage, like Sylvash, Aya, and then some good defenders, or like AoE guards or the E2, I'll say go ahead, I guess, why not? E2 her for the utility that she can provide your other operators. But yeah, I'll move on next to Ptilopsis, who is actually the main reason why I put in the banner. I just actually wanted Ptilopsis for her talent. But yeah, she's a AoE medic or multi-target medic. And when deployed, so yeah, deployed like Aya's zone, instead of Rosa's in team. But yeah, when deployed, the natural SP recovery speed of the allies is increased by 0.3 seconds. So instead of like 1 second, it's increased by what is instead 1.3 seconds, which may not sound much, but it's actually a lot since a lot of like the operators like Aya or Silverash is like there is a 90 SP 90 SP. So throughout the time, you're actually shortening the amount of time instead of like 90 seconds to shortening to like 70 seconds, which is a lot. You're cutting off like more around one third of the recovery timing. So you may not see much of paper, but it's actually a lot. So yeah, and then for skills, I guess, skills. I guess I'll talk about skill 2 first, since it's actually the skill that most people use, where you expand the attack range to this. I'm not exactly sure how the like how the module will actually affect it. Actually, do any of them have module? No, right? Yeah, not yet. I guess I just talk about the module right now. Not exactly sure how the module will affect the skill too. From what I've heard, it doesn't. But yeah, it expands her attack range as well as reduce her attack interval by 1.9 seconds. So it can make it zero, like less than 1 second per attack interval use. I don't think you need to see. I believe Kikaze has demonstrated before, where or is it someone else? I can't remember. Someone has demonstrated that the because of how greatly reduced the attack interval is, she can actually keep Hoshiguma alive against the not Hoshiguma. Is it Hoshiguma? I can't remember. That she can keep operators that shouldn't be able to survive against like the enriched lizard boys. So yeah, that is also that. Like the amount of healing that the skill can provide is actually a lot. It's actually great. It's actually a lot. And this is based on my own experience I've heard. Like I felt in high risk CC where perfumer's healing wasn't enough. So I actually had to bring Ptilopsis for her skill 2 to actually provide enough healing to keep up with the amount of damage that the CC enemies are actually dealing. So yeah, that's basically the most skill people use. The only skill I'll say that drawback is actually the high SP cost, which like I said is somewhat negated by her talent, but it's still a long time for it to actually for downtime for it. There's still around like a 60 around a 70 seconds ish downtime for the skill, which is a lot. But because of the amount of healing that it provides, it is actually more or less worth it to be honest. And it's actually, from what I've heard, it's actually more worth it to actually just retreat and then redeploy her. It actually does come back faster from what I've heard. But yeah, I guess. And then skill 1, where it's just the per usual fixed attack buff. And so you know why you use it over the skill 2, like I said. You do not want the long downtime. That's probably the reason why. And so the fact that you're increasing attack by 90 is actually really quite high by itself. It's actually quite a lot of healing, I guess. Increasing it to around 400-ish. Yeah, higher, around like 400-ish. It may not sound like much, but the fact that because she's actually multi-target, so she's healing 400 health for every single one. Which for most ground enemies, where ground operators, where they have around 2000 health, so that's about a fifth. Was it a fifth? That's more or less a fifth of their attack already. So yeah, it's actually a lot. It's more or less about her, to be honest. In terms of it's kind of people have been comparing her with Perfumer. If we just comparing like the skill ones, since actually the skill ones are the same. Yeah, similar. They just provide good healing. Whereas Perfumer has the global passive regen. Here the SP recovery up. So it's kind of that, to be honest, if you don't want to compare the skill 2. Since in most general cases, like most use cases, the amount of healing that they provide with just the skill 1, so you don't have to compare the skill 2, where they're diverse, is actually more or less enough for general content. So yeah, you're more or less, if you're going to be using them, just be comparing like the talent that they give. But yeah, Dogcesy is actually a very strong operator. That's the whole reason why I put on the banner. Since I have been wanting to get a Ptilopsis on my hand for the longest time already. So yeah. Then I'll move on to Sora. I'll be somewhat comparing with Scouter, I guess. But yeah, Sora is a bard, or aura supporter, as you like to call them. So they do not attack, and they constantly heal all allies within their range for 10% of their attack. And they themselves are not affected by the Inspire effect, which is what they grant themselves. So they cannot buff themselves. So yeah. So the one thing that's unique to her is Anchor. So whenever the skill ends, there's a 50% chance for her to immediately recover 50% of the SP that she needs. So yeah, whenever she uses a skill, there's a 50% chance that the next skill will only take half as long. So to think of it that way, I guess. But yeah. And so basically more or less you're only be using for her skill 1, where she does good healing because of attack expanded attack range as well. This somewhat makes up for the fact of how janky the but's range can be at times. It's actually still quite janky, but yeah. As well as inflicting sleep to all enemies within the attack range. As well as increasing the trait effect to 70% again, so it's increased healing. I guess that's kind of what people has been using it for. I guess that's how I've been using it for. Kind of like, how do I say, since there are certain enemies where you cannot like one cycle them, so you're actually using this skill to actually store for time. I mean, in most cases, not it's actually a bad thing, because how do I say, because since in certain maps, actually it depends on the map. Because certain maps, the next wave only spawns when the current wave is killed. But in certain maps, the wave spawns based on timing interval. So it doesn't matter whether the previous wave is killed or not. The next wave after a certain period of time, like let's say like 30 seconds, will spawn already. So in that case, in like the second scenario, it's not that her sleep is actually not that good at stalling. But in the first scenario, it's actually very good. But I'm mainly be using it to stall, like I said. Since there are certain cases where certain enemies cannot be killed by like one cycle of silverish attack. So I actually use the skill to stall for the next 7 seconds. Next 7 seconds, so maybe allow like my other operators to actually get back up their skills. Since I found that it's quite hard to time like between Silvericious and Aya's skill like the skills. Because they say Silvericious is 90 SP but lasts for 30 seconds, whereas Aya is 80 SP but lasts for 15 seconds. So it's actually quite hard to time. So actually her having the skill for 7 seconds actually does somewhat ease the timing, the skill rotation by 7 seconds. Which may not sound much, but it has helped me out in certain like CCs and stuff like that. Another reason why you want to use it is to actually, how do I say, and help your operator survive. Since enemies put to sleep cannot attack, so for example your guard, your Silverash because of defense debuff as well as your defender is low on health, they can use this to put all the enemies to sleep, prevent them from attacking. And also that's why having the increased trait effect, so actually allowing your operators to be healed up by the time her skill ends, so that she can survive the next few hits. Let's maybe even survive for the next like skill cycle, stuff like that. This is the so yeah, Sora is actually the main reason why people actually even use her for. It's for the big AoE sleep. I mean, if technically Kafka would be better in most cases or not, because of her being faster deployed, and you can specifically target like which area of the map you want to sleep, be isolate the group of enemies. Where Sora you have to deploy her in advance, with like a plan in advance of what enemies want to sleep when you want to activate and stuff like that. But it's by no means a bad skill actually. It's the utility that the skill provides, the sleep, the AoE sleep as well as healing, is actually quite big in most cases or not. AS actually saved me once in IS, but yeah, it's more or less it to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, this is the skill that most people use. And yeah, I'll move on to skill 2, which have always people saying what is overshadowed by Scouter and stuff like that. But you do need to take note of the fact that because of our talent, the uptime for the skill 2 is actually generally not that high. And do take note that the attack buff that she gives is considerably higher than skill 2, which is what the people use for like consistent buffing, which her skill 2 can actually somewhat provide if the talent actually triggers, which is half. But yeah, so the fact that the attack buff that she grants at rank 7 is actually higher than that, and they have similar initial uptime as well. So yeah, it's kind of like, how do I say? If you want higher like if you think about like consistent buffing, sure, technically Scouter skill 2 will be better, but she buffs more attack, so if defense is not an issue for you, you can actually use Sora skill 2 for that. As well as the fact that since Scouter skill 3 actually she loses health as skill 3, you don't worry about that, but also having a very high attack buff. I mean, technically Sora stats is lower than Scouter, but it's somewhat negligible in most cases. But yeah, I'll say that Sora is not useless, because in those specific cases where it's like, in those specific cases where you don't have to worry about either the HP debuff, the HP like bleed that Scouter skill 3 has, or the defense buff. You want higher attack buff more than the defense buff that Scouter skill 2 provide. Sora can actually substitute it for that, but in most cases or not, like I said, Scouter is just better in most cases or not. It's like skill 2, the minus this is just you don't have to activate it every single time, or the higher attack buff that skill 3 does have at M3, as well as the true damage that skill 3 does provide. Sometimes may also greatly outweighs it. So it's kind of that, I guess. I mean, it's actually quite good of a skill because many help out by her talent actually. But yeah, I have found it to be somewhat usable. I have found it to actually be usable. I would say she is overshadowed by Scouter in most cases, not for the attack buffing, but yeah, she's not skill 2 is not completely useless. Alright, don't say it's completely useless. There is use cases for it, but just very little. But yeah, Sora is actually quite a fun operator to play. I wouldn't say she's a strong operator, but she's a very fun operator to play with. So yeah. And I'm actually very happy that I actually finally bought the swimsuit skin, by the way. I'm a sucker for swimsuits, alright? You can't blame me, I'm just a sucker for swimsuits. But yeah. So I'll just move on to the last operator of the banner, which is Kiara. First, I'll talk about Mizuki, since that's what the stalker operator. Stalker, is it? Stalker? Ambusher, I guess. I don't know. I used to call them stalker, I guess. Because that's the stalker operator I've been building up. It's actually Mizuki right now. I have found in certain cases or not, where even despite the evasion that they have, as well as lower taunt levels, which is this one, the lower priority to the target bar anyways, I have found where there is actually times when Mizuki actually dies, but I don't want him to die. Which so there is actually been a few cases or not, they actually have found where Kiara's actually natural regen may actually be better in that cases, because for just her self sustain, like she can just deploy her down there, and she know that she'll be able to constantly do damage without having to worry about actually like keeping him or her keeping the Scouter operator alive. In certain cases I've been using the stalker operator. It's kind of like a filter. I actually be using them to actually kill off like the weaker mobs, so that the bigger mobs only the bigger mobs travel to like the bulk of my operators for them to actually deal with. So it's kind of be using that as like a filter. Can actually kind of think about it. Mizuki's bind actually can be quite useful for like in the filtering process, which Kiara doesn't have binding. Okay, that's kind of okay. I guess that's something. I guess I don't know. I probably have to build up my Kiara and then play around with, or borrow Kiara's. I guess I haven't really borrowed much Kiara, but like I said, I have found cases where the actual regen is actually very useful. But in most cases or not, like I said, I guess I was to say in most cases or not, Mizuki's higher damage is actually still better in most cases or not. But there has been cases where I found where actually the stalker operator actually having regen will actually be a lot better. You just deploy her without having to worry about her like giving to knowing that timing when to deploy the scouter Seaborn to buff the defense so that they survive more hits while also regening their health and stuff like that. It's kind of hands off I guess, especially if you're using skill 1, which is automatic trigger. As for masteries, I'll say M3 will actually be very good on skill 3, and that's what I've heard. Since it reduces it from 3 to 2, which is basically a third a third of the downtime. But yeah, especially since they have stalker operators have very long attack interval. So yeah, and then skill 2, where increasing the talent regen by 2.7 seconds, as well as doing additional ice damage to enemies with their damage every second. So this is not dependent on the attack interval. So just asking which skill is better? Both of them are actually quite good to be honest. Both of them are actually very good. And I actually I don't have much experience with Kiara, so I don't exactly know like the use cases in between the two different skills. Since all the Kiaras I've been borrowing has all been having skill 1 active. So kind of that to be honest. I really don't know much about Kiara. I do really want to play around with her more. But I'm somewhat limited by the amount of resources that I have and the amount of resources I have stockpiled up. So yeah, mainly bottleneck by XP, but yeah, I will build Kiara up regardless, and actually play around with her. Since I actually did get her like some time ago, I just don't remember which banner it is again as well. I can probably pull it up if I want to. Go and rewatch all my pulls that I have uploaded since I did get her after I started the YouTube channel. Since she did came out after I started the YouTube channel, but yeah, Kiara is not bad. Kind of the actually thing. It's kind of the thing about the entire banner, I guess. Yes, I'm more or less wrapped up. Don't think there's actually a module as well. There are modules? No. So yeah, I guess I'm more or less just wrapping up. I guess this is kind of like the entire thing for the 5 stars. They are very strong, just like they overshadowed. Like Sora is scouter. Ptilopsis is perfumer. In most cases or not, since perfumer is good enough, so there's no reason to bring a 5 star, who actually costs more. 17 to 14. Like 15. Since my perfumer is max port. Yeah. In most cases, there's no reason to bring a 5 star unless you want a talent. Then Kiara, in most cases, will not actually let's say Ethan because the skill 1 is passive, that just passive us damage, or Mizuki is actually better. It's kind of that to be honest. That's the entire case for 5 stars. They are not overshadowed. Their counterparts of the same archetype is actually better in most cases. And then for the 6 stars, Aya is kind of undisputed, and then Rosa is more for utility. Yes, I guess I'll go for the in-depth summary now. So let's see, skill 1, you won't use it. If anything, other classes, if you're going to use for single target, which skill 1 specialized in, other classes are generally better. Skill 2, good general skill, consistent splash arts damage, as well as having some good arts resistance that can help you out. Skill 3 is skill 3, the big burst AoE arts damage. Can melt even the toughest of foes, even bosses. And then Rosa. Skill 1 is good introductory skill to the archetype, since the archetype is very unique. Skill 2, the general skill they use for. Good attack buff, as well as allowing her to target additional target. And then skill 3, using it for the binding utility. The damage by itself is nothing to scoff for as well, it's still considered very high. And then let's see, Ptilopsis. You may mainly be using her for talent, but skill 1 is good consistent uptime of healing. Like good consistent uptime with attack buffing for healing, especially since of her talent. And then skill 2, the healing that skill 2 can provide is undisputed. Very high consistent healing. The only drawback is the long downtime that it does have, which is somewhat mitigated by a talent. And then Sora, or actually never turn off that. Sora, mainly used for skill 1. mainly used for skill 1 to store and sleep, to store either for like the skill cycles, maybe the little bit of extra bit of seconds that you need to store, or to help to actually help to like break up the fight into two to allow your operators to heal. And then skill 2's buff may be lesser than that of scouters, but yeah, if you want the detail of why you want to use skill 2 over scouter, check my one, check that part I guess, go back, check that part. But in most cases or not, scouter is better if you're going to be using skill 2, but like I said, in specific scenarios, skill 2 is still better. But those scenarios are few and far between. But yeah. Okay, this go. And then Kiara. I have found cases where I actually have wanted the region over the extra attack. Is over the extra damage that the other stalker operators actually provide. Skill 1 for consistent damage from what I've heard. And then skill 2 for skill 2 for burst damage. Which is kind of like most operators actually. But yeah. If anything, if you want to put on a banner, I honestly will not stop you, to be honest. I think this banner is actually quite good. At least based on the operators that they do provide, which I have myself has put, and actually gotten Ptilopsis. That's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but it's already somewhat end of the video. I'm not give out how much people actually watch to the end. Actually, not a lot for what I remember my analytics. But yeah, I actually got Ptilopsis, but yeah. This is actually quite a decent banner. The 5 stars are actually okay, and then the 6 stars are actually very strong. So if you're gonna pull on a banner, I honestly cannot say, since I pulled on it myself. But yeah. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure like how much videos I will be upload since my internship is starting tomorrow. But yeah, this has been Dogcesy. Bye bye.